welcome to the latest episode of Dads Watching Sports. It's the podcast all about the latest and greatest in sports and also about our dads as lives as we go through all the fun stuff that goes along with that. It is episode 19, June 14th, 2020, which I know everyone's out there thinking, happy Flag Day. It's the much anticipated Flag Day episode of Dads Watching Sports. We might do some fun with flags and friends. We might do all kinds of fun stuff today on the show, but thank you for joining us. We normally have, 2 or 3 people here on the show. Tonight, it's just Kyle Castles and myself. I am Michael Draper. We've had a couple of guests over the past couple of weeks as we've been going through summer, and we have, let's just be honest, there's not a lot of sports going on. So we've had a lot of guests just to talk about different things, and whether it's their podcast or different things that they're involved with. And no guests for tonight. We're just going with just Michael and Kyle, and we appreciate you guys for checking out Dads Watching Sports this week. There's a couple of different places you can check us out throughout the week. Hopefully you're listening to it in one of those places. You can check us out in Apple Podcasts or anywhere you listen to podcasts. And if you do that, give us a like, give us a review, rate us, subscribe. Go ahead and throw it out there for some of your friends and family to check out as well. You can always check us out on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We have a YouTube channel, which is pretty cool. We have broken into the TikTok world, Kyle. If you haven't checked out our TikTok, I must say there's some pretty funny stuff there, some pretty funny content. And we are launching a new website, dadswatchingsports.com. That's going to be ready whenever Mr. Castles decides to get us his bio, because we can't just leave a random picture of somebody and no info there. So check out dadswatchingsports.com. We'll get that up within the week, and we'll have all kind of information on that website. We'll have information about the latest show. You can go back in the archives and look at all the other shows that we've had previously and check out some of our, our previous shows that we've done. You can learn a little bit more about us, the dads, the guys that run the show and run things going on with Dads Watching Sports. We're also going to have some cool stuff about different recipes we've tried, different events we've gone to, different books we've read, this kind of stuff that's going on in our lives. And then, Kyle, one really cool thing that I think is going to be a part of our website is causes that we care about. And that's going to talk just about some different nonprofit organizations and some different causes that we like to give back to, whether it be our money, our time, our energy, our effort. I know you had a couple that you recommended for our website as well.
Yeah, so my big one is Autism Speaks. To give the listeners a little bit more into my background, before I was a teacher, I went to school in undergrad and majored in history, which was not smart because the only thing you can do with a history degree is go to grad school. So while I was in grad school getting a master's and in my initial teaching license, I was a teacher assistant in a special needs classroom, high needs special needs classroom. And for the most part, I was paired up with one young man who suffered from autism. He was nonverbal. He could get aggressive. He was fantastic. I love that little dude. Still do. He's not little anymore. I mean, he's a grown man now, but he was still my little dude then. And at that point, there's something about those children that suffer with this that it speaks to me. It pricks my heart. And so anytime I'm giving to that organization, and Autism Speaks. But we also give money to St. Jude as well. My wife's done the 5K and the half marathon. St. Jude's kind of a big deal in her family. So it's St. Jude for us. It's St. Jude and Autism Speaks.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we, anything that we can do to share awareness about that organization or some of mine or the Tennessee Kidney Foundation. And I will say that selfishly because I work there, but also because we just do a lot of really great work. The YMCA, which does phenomenal work for families. And I know we had a couple of others on our website as well. So you have to check out the website. And again, that's just for us a way to make light of some of the great causes that go on and some of the great work that people do. And we hope that people, when they're on our website, they see that and they say, you know what, I feel strongly about those nonprofits and organizations' missions. I'm going to make a gift, or I'm going to volunteer to work with those organizations, because again, that's what this is all about. And so we are really happy to do that. We also want you to interact with us throughout the week. You can check us out, like I said, Instagram, shoot us a DM on Facebook or Twitter. You can check us out through TikTok. We'd love to get some feedback on that. And you can always email us throughout the week at dadswatchingsports dadswatchingsports@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you throughout the week, whether it's talking about the previous episode that you just listened to, or hey, if we've announced kind of who's coming up or what's coming up on the next episode, we'd love to hear from you throughout the week about that. Also, throughout the week, we just kind of sometimes put out random polls about, hey, what's the best out of this, or what do you vote for this? And so we'd love to have some interaction that way as well. And we'll bring it up on the show. We're actually going to bring up one of those here in just a second. Kyle, I mentioned it is Flag Day.
Yes, it is.
Very famous holiday amongst all those here in our country. You and I got together. Our families actually got together and celebrated Flag Day. As any good, hard-working American would, we grilled
with some fantastic bratwurst, if I could say.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we threw the brats on the grill. We had the kids swimming a little bit. We had some great tree nut free cookie brownie conglomeration that Mrs. Castles made, our legal representation. And we even got everything done in time for Kyle to go home and get the weed eater out, get a little weed eating done, and then be ready for the show, Kyle. So I'm glad you were able to get home and do that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a little bit of some wild stuff sticking up. Had to chop all that down real quick, but other than that, I mean, it didn't take long. I see you put a different shirt on though, Mike. I'm assuming you threw it at somebody.
I actually had this shirt thrown at me. So for those of you listening that are like, what the heck are they talking about? Reach out to the wives watching sports, and they'll be able to cue you in on all this stuff that we're discussing. But Kyle, we got to kind of go back really quickly to last week's episode. We talked a little bit about the fact that, I was at home one night by myself. The kids were already in bed. My wife had been out to enjoy some much deserved time with some friends. And I was sitting there thinking like, man, now would be the time for me to get a PlayStation, because here's some time when I could just kind of hang out, put in, one of the latest and greatest sports games, play a couple of games, and then be done for the night. So we talked about it on the show. We put up a Twitter poll, which we'll get to in a second. And I will say that things in the Draper household, we've had a couple of conversations throughout the week, and things are trending in the positive manner for a PlayStation. As I pull up the Twitter poll, Kyle, the Twitterverse has spoken. Not all the precincts are collected yet. We still have an hour left in the open for the polls to be open. But in the question posted on our Twitter account of should the wife of show host Michael Draper, Suzanne Draper, cave and be cool with him getting a PlayStation, Kyle, the votes are in, and 67% say yes, the PlayStation should be coming to the Draper Casa. I'm excited because you got things like college football, FIFA. I saw there's a new golf game that's coming out, which I'm super stoked because I was a huge Tiger Woods golf fan back in the day. So, Father's Day is coming up. It looks like things are trending in the right direction. Am I getting my hopes up, or do you have pretty good feeling that things might be going in my favor here?
Well, I was just at your house, and your wife and I had this conversation. I feel pretty good about you getting a PlayStation.
Nice.
The question is, because you brought up the golf game.
Yeah.
I did not expect you to say you wanted to go out and get a PlayStation 5, because I don't know if you noticed, but they came out just this past week and had the big reveal and listed 30-some-odd games that are going to be available at launch, and it's all coming out this holiday. I don't think you want to wait that long, and I don't think you really need the latest one. So the question is, do you go to PlayStation 4 because all of the graphics and the engines and all that stuff are better, or do you go to 3 so you can go out and get a college football game, because there is not a college football game that'll play on the 4?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, man. I haven't really done my PlayStation homework. I'm just looking for a system that can give me a little FIFA, give me a little golf. I mean, honestly, I could go back to the 2 for all I care. Just something to give me a little sports action. Now, I will say we do have a Nintendo 64 in the house. I believe it was 2 nights ago. My wife and I, we did an awesome TikTok. So if you're on TikTok, check us out. But it culminated in some Mario Kart. And I'm all good for that. Nintendo 64 is fun. I got a college basketball game. I've got an NBA game. I've got, I think, a WCW versus NWO or something like that.
Nice.
Yeah. But I need something a little bit more updated that we can go into and play some college football, some NBA.
Look, if you're gonna have an N64, why do we not have NFL Quarterback Club 99?
Is usually what happens when the quarterback gets sacked there. Shout out to Thomas T-Dub Taylor for that. But yeah, Kyle, well, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out, man. We are a week removed, or a week until Father's Day. I feel pretty strongly that there might be something coming my way, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm
Hope
not
so.
going to make any guarantees. And again, my wife, I gave her a little bit of a hard time last week. I know she listens every single week, which I appreciate, honey, and I love you for it. But you're cool with this. I understand. We're just having a little fun there, of course. Kyle,
Hey, I appreciate you listening to Suzanne, just in case you want to hear it from me too.
That's right. Absolutely. Kyle, let's get into, it's summertime and we're going to get into sports. We're going to go deep into some college football talk. And since Kyle plays college football, I know he'll have all the expert opinion. But we're going to go deep into the college football talk after the break. Before we go to the break, it's summertime, man. We talked about this when you were at my house a little while ago. The kids are on break. Some of them may or may not be in school, but it's summertime. What do you guys have planned for the summertime with the family, with the kids? What are you doing to stay busy? I know you're a school teacher, so what is your summertime looking, and has COVID impacted that at all?
So we have not put anything together for a summer trip because we usually do that around March. And then March hit and COVID came in, and we weren't sure if we were even going to be able to go anywhere. So we are in the process of talking about, where do we want to go on a beach trip? Nice. There's not a whole lot you can do. My youngest is going to be 7 or 8 months old. So, a trip like a Disney trip or something is way out of the question.
Well, premature there.
Absolutely. So instead we're looking at a beach trip, maybe sometime towards the end of June. We'll see how that works out. And then her mom texted us today and said something about maybe a cabin in Gatlinburg. So okay, I don't know if that's going to happen, but we'll see.
Yeah.
What are y'all what's y'all's plans?
So the Drapers are doing a couple of things. So when we were, this is pre-COVID, we actually scheduled a trip out to Myrtle Beach. None of our family's been there before. Our kids really have not been to the beach, period. Our daughter's been once, but she was so small and it was for like an hour and it didn't really count. And so Myrtle Beach was in the plans for May. Obviously everything hit with COVID and we have shifted that. We didn't cancel it. We just postponed to August. We're still hoping to be able to do that because we think that would be a fun trip for the family. But we are going mid-July. So it's kind of unique for my family. So my brother's birthday, my wife's birthday, and my mom's birthday are all consecutive days in July. And so we won't be with my brother or my mom for their birthday this year, but we are going to be with my in-laws. We're taking a trip to out East Georgia, really close to Clemson University, over there in East Georgia. We're going to a lake house. We're going to rent a boat for a week and just get down the lake and not really have any plans. We did this a couple of years ago. We went to Hart Springs, Arkansas, which is the old stomping grounds of Matt, who usually joins us on the show. Yeah, we're looking forward to just lake house, relaxing, eating some good food. I already told the family we usually like divide up who's cooking what night, and you can kind of, you bring your recipe for that night and your family's in charge of cooking. And the Draper family is going to be doing a crawfish and shrimp boil. That's a
little what's the word? Kind of a big bite to take there.
It's adventurous.
Yeah,
it's very adventurous, but I'm very excited about it. I've done it a couple of times before, so I'm pretty excited about it. So we're doing those two things. We'll probably sprinkle in some stuff here and there throughout the rest of the summer. As I mentioned, we got a lot of birthdays in our family coming up. Our kids went back to school, which was a huge game changer because we're both still working, and having our kids back was awesome. And then I'm also supposed to be training for I don't know if you can see my shirt here, but an Ironman. In October, I'm doing a half Ironman that I haven't yet really started training for. And so when my wife listens to this, she's going to be shaking her head saying, yeah, about that. So I guess I'm going to be doing some training at some point in time during the rest of the summer as well. So,
I hope you do, because those Ironmans, from what I hear, you can see I'm not really an Ironman type of guy. I'm more of a hungry man type of guy.
There we go.
But I hear they're pretty strenuous.
They can be. It's fun. I mean, it's the race day is fun. I'll be honest. The training sucks. It's not any fun at all, and I don't enjoy it, and I don't really ever do a great job of doing it. But this will be my third. I'll be honest. The first time I went, I jumped in the water. The water was freezing. I lost my breath and was never able to really recapture it and got pulled out of the water. It was very humiliating. I had to walk my bike back from the transition area. Well, Kyle, we got to go to a quick break here, man. We come back from the break. We're going to get all into some college football talk. We're going to give you our top 10, what's going on latest with our favorite teams, really what we're looking forward to over the college football season. But we will be right back to talk NCAA football on Dad's Watching Sports. We will be right back. Thanks for checking out this week's episode of Dad's Watching Sports. We hope you subscribe to our show in Apple Podcast app as well, or wherever you listen to podcasts. But are you following us on social media? Now, whether your thing is Facebook, Twitter, the Gram, YouTube, or yes, even TikTok, you can find some great dad content on all of our pages. Now, enough of this nonsense. We just need to pay Kirk's PlayStation internet bill. Now, back to the show with Matt, Kyle, Michael, and all the fun of Dad's Watching Sports. And we're back here on Dad's Watching Sports. Sunday, June 14th. That's the week of this show, and we are excited for you to be joining us. Episode 19, Michael Draper and Kyle Castles here on the show. Again, if you haven't checked us out before, check us out in Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can check us out on our social channels, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We have a website now. It's not going to be launched until probably later this week, but it's dadswatchingsports.com. You can always email us at dadswatchingsports@gmail.com. Kyle, one thing I wanted to mention before we went to the break, and I'll kind of catch us up here really quickly, is one of the things that happened this past week is my wife's a big Netflix fan. She watches a lot of Netflix shows. I mean, we both do, actually. But she was catching up on Fuller House the other night, which I had not really seen an episode of. And so I sat down and watched a couple episodes. It was pretty nostalgic because, it's the majority of the same crew from the old show. But it definitely got me thinking about, like, those awesome, cheesy, just unbelievable 90s TV, like sitcom drama type shows like Full House, Family Matters, et cetera, et cetera. And so what we're going to do next week is we're going to do a little trivia game between all of our co-hosts here with 90s TV show theme songs. So we're thinking like, Boy Meets World, Salute Your Shorts, Home Improvement, Seinfeld, Friends. I mean, just any 90s TV shows. So what I want you guys to do, if you're listening, shoot us an email, shoot us a message on Facebook or Twitter, wherever you're listening to us, and however you can get in touch with us. Shoot us what you feel like is your favorite 90s TV show theme song, and we'll collect that, and we'll give it all to someone that we won't have any idea of what the order is, and we'll have them played, and we'll do some trivia. And if we use your song, we'll give you a shout-out there on the show next week. So 90s TV trivia, Kyle, coming to us.
I will wipe the floor with you, bud. That's
I don't know, man.
Right up my alley, man.
I don't know. I was a big proponent of TGIF.
Oh, TGIF was fantastic.
Yeah, it was.
So speaking of TGIF, are y'all doing Disney Plus yet? Are you a Disney Plus?
Oh yeah, we're Disney Plus. Yeah.
So I saw just this week. Do you remember early
Dinosaurs.
TGIF? Dinosaurs is showing up like next month, I think, on TGIF.
I saw that. I'm the baby. Dinosaurs. I'm excited. That was
not the mama.
That's right. It's it was kind of early 90s. It kind of tailed off during the prime of TGIF. But it's a great show.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great show. So stay tuned for that next week. Kyle, we're going to dive into some college football because it really looks like we are heading headfirst into college football coming back and having those. What's going on with your latest what's kind of the latest stuff around the Bulldogs? I know you're a big Mississippi State fan. So what's kind of the latest happening with Mississippi State? And does for all intents and purposes, does it look like they're going to have football? And will there be fans at Davis Wade Stadium at Scott Field?
Mississippi State's my favorite team. We all know Mike Leach is the new head coach there. So that's fun. He's already tweeted something insensitive.
Of course.
Because that's what Mike Leach does.
Absolutely.
And because of that, Fabian Lovett, a defensive tackle, has entered the transfer portal. I don't know if he's gone anywhere yet, but he has transferred to school. But with his transfer out, there is a transfer in from Stanford University named KJ Costello, a quarterback. He was, I believe, a 5-star kid coming out of high school, maybe just a 4-star kid, but still very highly recruited. And coming in and playing quarterback for the Bulldogs this year. We'll get, he's a 1-year guy, graduate transfer. I actually just looking it up not too long ago. He's actually like top 15-ish for on like the Vegas odds for a Heisman, because you put a kid like that in a Mike Leach system, like if things go well, and you look at you look at the schedule Mississippi State plays. I mean, every year, Auburn, Bama, LSU, right? Kentucky.
Yeah, dang right.
Hey, look, that Mark Stoops defense is not playing anymore. Like, they're
No,
pretty
are
freaking
not.
good.
Yes, they
So,
are.
he comes out and he gets Mississippi State to run the table all the way through. I mean, Dak Prescott was being talked about for Heisman when he kind of took, 8 or 9 in a row to start the year before we ran into Alabama, number 1 in the nation. It's not outside the realm of possibility. Is it going to happen? Absolutely not. But hey, it's fun to think about.
Yeah.
I'll give you my Heisman front runners later because I know that's where we're headed. And I got a couple dark horses. I hope that's okay.
Absolutely.
And Mike Leach's are. Yeah.
Let me ask you this about Mike Leach. So Joe Moorhead was there, what,
2 seasons?
2 seasons. One, does Mike Leach have a longer leash? I'm guessing he probably does.
He's got to because of the money he's getting paid.
Yeah, but will he have the same, better, or less success within his first 2 years that Joe Moorhead had?
You know what? I think with KJ Costello, he's got a shot at being pretty good. Moorhead, I think, as far as X's and O's goes, I think he's great. The problem is I don't know that he could get people to buy into him, which is why him working with a guy like James Franklin. I don't know if you've ever gone and listened to James Franklin speak, Mike, but I've been to a few coaching clinics back when I was coaching, and I heard him speak. And, just listening to him speak at a coaching clinic, I could run through a wall for that dude. So, when you have that kind of coach at the top, you need more of the strategic, the X's and O's type guys underneath him, where, I think Moorhead needed those guys that could get the players to buy in. And I don't know if he had the right staff around him. Had he had the time to build it, the staff and had that chemistry, I think Moorhead may be able to win a few more games than he did. Can Leach do it? If Costello comes out and looks like he did 2 years ago at Stanford, yeah, we could win a lot of football games this year. There's a 4-star recruit out of Texas named Sawyer Robertson, quarterback, that's committed to state. If he is anything, if Garrett Schrader, he played a lot last year, and he was a 4-star kid coming out of North Carolina. If the right quarterback is in that system with Mike Leach, man, there's good things that can happen.
Yeah.
It may be, 56-49 ball games. But Mike Leach has kind of shown he can take a team. He was in Lubbock, Texas, and he was in where's Washington State?
Pullman,
Washington. And he was able to pull, that 1 or 2, upset type game a year. So I mean, if he can do that at Starkville, he can stay there until he's ready to retire.
Yeah. Well, the thing that Mike Leach has going against him is the same thing that Mark Stoops does at Kentucky, which is my favorite team. And they're in the SEC, and it's loaded every single year. You mentioned who they play, and Kentucky doesn't have the LSUs and Auburns and Alabamas, but they've got the Floridas and Georgias and what normally is either Tennessee or South Carolina, Missouri, who's also challenging. And so with Kentucky, they're just preparing to be the 2020 SEC Eastern Division champions right now. They've got I believe they've got about 50 players back on campus. They're kind of bringing players back in waves over the next couple of weeks to really kind of get their gears going. But I'm excited about Kentucky. You mentioned it, Mark Stoops. Their defense is legit. They lost a few pieces. Most people are probably going to point to Cash Daniel. He was really more of an emotional leader than he really was on the field. Really towards the end of the season, he was actually the backup. He would kind of start, but then a lot of his plays would go to either Chris Oates or can't remember the other player's name, but I mean, Kentucky's defense is going to be legit. They brought back I think they brought back 9 of 11 starters. Their offense is going to be fine. Really, the thing for them will be on the offensive side of the ball, because they're replacing Lynn Bowden Jr., who was their entire offense last year. Really, the big thing for them is they've got Terry Touchdown coming back from that MCL tear that he had last year against Eastern Michigan, which actually leads me to my next question, which was going to be which game on the schedule are you most looking forward to? And without a doubt for me, for Kentucky, it's Eastern Michigan, because they had a dirty play on Terry Wilson where they did the horse collar tackle, tore his MCL, was out the rest of the season. And it's been a well-known fact among the Kentucky football fan base and really everyone involved in the program that Terry Touchdown has got that date circled, thinking, I'm going to hang 50 on Eastern Michigan, and it's not even going to be a close to a game. And I know it's Eastern Michigan, and nobody really cares, and that doesn't prove how well they're going to do in the SEC. But I just want Kentucky to come out and just obliterate them. They've got a tough schedule. They traded in some not so good West opponents. I think they traded in Arkansas at home last year for at Auburn this year. So that's a huge turnaround right there. But I am super excited, and nobody's giving Kentucky any credit. And so I think, will they win the East? Probably not. I was just joking. But do they have a good shot? They actually do. The schedule's a little tough. They do have to go to Florida. They've got to go to Knoxville. But they've got Georgia at home. They do have to go to Auburn. And the schedule can kind of set up if they can take care of business in the first half of the season, and if they can win at Florida, they can be right there. Yeah. Kyle, college football it seems like we were talking about this off air before the show. It seems like almost every year, really, if you look at the top, 10 to 12 to 15 teams, it's almost kind of the same teams over and over. You'll get a couple that will sneak in every once in a while. But as we look at a preseason top 10, and a lot is going to change over the next couple of months, but the preseason top 10, who do you have in your preseason top 10, and maybe just a little reason as to why you've got them ranked there?
Yeah. Since you came to me and you didn't tell me how to do it, I'm going to go 10-1, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So at number 10, I got Wisconsin. They just seem to always kind of reload. I know they lost Jonathan Taylor, but they're going to have a big, strong offensive line that can move people. They're going to have a running back that can carry the ball. They're going to have a quarterback that can make enough throws when needed. And in a defense that kind of they play really sound complementary football, where the offense does what it does, defense does what this does, and it just works. So I think a few people got them kind of late teens and even into the 20s in some places, but Wisconsin's always fun for me as an offensive lineman to watch.
Yeah,
just because the offensive line is kind of where
O-line
the games are won. Absolutely. At number 9, another Big Ten team, and this one's Penn State. I just talked about James Franklin. I think it was pretty obvious I'm a James Franklin fan. I liked him when he was at Vanderbilt. They bring a lot of pieces back from a pretty good team last year. So I think Penn State's got a shot at maybe challenging to get into that Big Ten title game. Penn State, Wisconsin wouldn't be a bad game in that Big Ten title game, actually.
Yeah.
From there, I got, Oklahoma, and I understand they lost Jalen Hurts, but Spencer Rattler, if he lives up to the hype, man, that kid is going to be pretty good. So I got Oklahoma there at whatever is that 8. At 7, I have Florida. Kyle Trask kind of came on after Felipe Franks got hurt last year. I'm a Mississippi State fan, so I actually like Dan Mullen. I can't say that too loud when my wife's around because she's a Tennessee fan and hates Florida, so I can't say anything positive about Florida. But I think Florida's got a lot of talent. And it was hard for me to put them at 7 behind my number 16, which is LSU, because LSU lost a lot more pieces, especially the big piece there at quarterback. We all know Joe Burrow is probably going to go down as the best passing quarterback in college football history, at least until somebody else comes along.
Yeah.
But he broke every passing record, so he kind of has to. But LSU has a kid, I think he's 2 years out of high school, maybe 3 years out of high school, named Miles Brennan.
Yep.
Actually out of the state of Mississippi. If he can do somewhat of what Joe Burrow did, and he's got some talent there around him, LSU's got a shot at kind of doing the same thing they did last year. At number 5, let's go out west finally. I got the Oregon Ducks. Penei Sewell is probably going to be my favorite player to watch this year. The left tackle out of Oregon. I really just as an old offensive lineman, I enjoy watching offensive linemen. And so Penei Sewell up there at Oregon. Georgia at number 4. If the kid, I forget his name, out of Wake Forest comes in and can play well, they're going to ask him to do much because they got a stable of running backs just run behind big offensive linemen. So I think Georgia's got a shot. Nick Saban's Alabama team at 3 because it's Nick Saban. Then Ohio State at 2 with Justin Fields. I like what that kid can do. The problem is I have not seen they have not been able to take the step and win a national title. But who has is Clemson with Trevor Lawrence. So they are my number 1 team.
You got Kyle Castles' top 10 preseason NCAA football teams. Kyle, we're going to have to go to a break here in a second, and then I'll pick up with mine after the break. So when we come back from a break, I'll give you my preseason top 10. We're going to talk Heisman, who's the front runners, who are some dark horses, and we'll get into a couple little more things about some college football. We'll talk about that and a few other things, but we'll be right back on Dad's Watching Sports. Thanks for checking out this week's episode of Dad's Watching Sports. We hope you subscribe to our show in Apple Podcast app as well, or wherever you listen to podcasts. But are you following us on social media? Now, whether your thing is Facebook, Twitter, the Gram, YouTube, or yes, even TikTok, you can find some great dad content on all of our pages. Now, enough of this nonsense. We just need to pay Kirk's PlayStation internet bill. Now, back to the show with Matt, Kyle, Michael, and all the fun of Dad's Watching Sports. And we're back here on Dad's Watching Sports. Michael Draper, Kyle Castles. We're talking college football. Kyle just gave us his top 10. Kyle, give us a quick little rundown, just the teams of where you had them again, just so people that were listening can have just a little bit of a refresher.
So number 10, Wisconsin. Number 9, Penn State. 8, Oklahoma. 7, Florida. 6, LSU. 5, Oregon. 4, Georgia. 3, Alabama. 2, Ohio State. And the number 1 team in the land, Clemson.
All right, so like I said earlier, a lot of similarities here, and so I won't go into a lot of the details because you did with some of the teams. But at number 10, I've got Auburn. I think sophomore Bo Nix is going to take a huge step up and really have Auburn kind of challenging in that West. But the West is just so tough. But I've got Auburn at number 10. Number 9 is a team that kind of like you had with Wisconsin. Some people have a little bit outside the top 10, but I think they're really kind of ready to make that step up to the next level, and that's Oklahoma State. I think, Chuba Hubbard is one of the best backs, if not the best back in the country, and having him back for kind of a surprise next season, I think has got Oklahoma State kind of primed and ready to go. And I think anytime you can get their coach out there with his mullet in front of everybody for Oklahoma State, I'm excited. I'm going for the Cowboys this year as kind of a dark horse.
I was going to say they got a man as their head coach.
That's right.
That.
He's over 40. He was 40 like a decade ago.
Something like that.
So I guess now he's 50. But number 8, I've got LSU. They do have Jamar Chase back. They've got a lot of pieces that they still have. The talent is just uber unbelievable there. But they do have Miles Brennan, who's going to have to replace Joe Burrow. So I've got them at number 8. Number 7, I've got Penn State. Micah Parsons is probably, if not the best linebacker in the country, one of the best linebackers in the country, and he leads that defense. And anytime you got to go into Happy Valley, it's a tough place to play. Number 6, I'm really high on Kyle Trask, and so that's why I've got Florida this high. I was not high on him. He actually got his first playing against Kentucky last year and led Florida back. They were down 2 or 3 scores and led them back, and I'm really high on that guy. Number 5, I've got Oregon. I think they're just built for success for the long haul, and they're always going to be up there in the top 6 or 7 teams in the country. My top 5, like I mentioned to you, is the same as yours. Just a little bit different order. Number 4, I've got the Fighting Nick Sabans in Alabama, and yes, I have some kinfolk who are on that staff, but I just think Alabama's time as being the number 1 or number 2 team I think it's on the decline, and not that they're going to fall off. They're always going to be one of the top teams in the country that's competing for a national championship. But I think the Georgias, the Clemsons, the Ohio States, and maybe even the Oregons of the world are caught up to them, and they're right there. And so I've got Alabama at number 4. They'll be led by
and the LSUs. The
LSUs, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I didn't even mention the national champion. Number 3, I've got Georgia. You mentioned the Wake Forest transfer, Jamie Newman. I think he comes in and has a big season, and I look for Georgia to finally get that monkey off their back, the Alabama monkey off their back, and win an SEC championship this year and be the dominant team of the SEC. Number 2 is I think this is more of a 1A and 1B than it is a 1 and a 2. Number 2, I've got Clemson. I do know, Trevor Lawrence is, people have been tabbing him the number 1 pick for the past 2 or 3 years. Travis Etienne coming back is huge for them. Could be the best back, if not for Chuba, could be the best back in the country. So Clemson's going to be right there. And then I've got Ohio State number 1. I think Justin Fields is just the best player in the country. And so I think when you've got the best player, you've got the best shot at being the best team. And so I've got Ohio State at number 1. Plus, they should have beaten Clemson in the playoff last year. Just a couple of fluke plays. It should have been the Buckeyes in the championship. So, Kyle, there's my top 10. Any reactions to that?
Not so much your top 10. I mean, I struggle putting Ohio State over Clemson. I think Clemson's just a better all around team. But the thing that you mentioned when you talk about Oklahoma State and with Clemson is you got two running backs that quite frankly should have just gone ahead and gone pro.
Yeah.
Because what are we talking about every time we talk about a running back getting ready to get paid is how much tread's left on those tires, and they're taking another year and putting more tread on those tires. And I get it, like college football's fun and all that. But man, like there's money to be made, and so that.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I'm really surprised Hubbard came back because Clemson, ETN probably had they had a bad taste in their mouth losing to LSU. They're the kind of the dynasty, for lack of a better term, right now, and he wanted to come back and win one more. But Hubbard's the one I'm really surprised at because, yes, I think Oklahoma State's a really good team, could sneak their way into the playoffs, but are they legitimately going to win the national championship? Probably not. So I'm kind of surprised that he came back. All right, Kyle, we talked Heisman. You kind of briefly mentioned it earlier with the Mississippi State quarterback, but if you had to say who are your maybe top 2 or 3 Heisman front runners, who do you have going into the season?
I mean, there's zero question about the top 2, and you can put them in any order you want. And that's Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. That is the 2 names going into this season. You could throw a lot of different names in for the third one. I think Travis Etienne. I think Chuba Hubbard. Both could make could make a case for being number 3. I'm trying to project with my third one here.
Yeah.
And looking and saying, like, who could be that third guy and maybe even jump up like Joe Burrow did and win it. And it's another LSU quarterback. I kind of, I've looked at some film on Miles Brennan. I was really interested in him coming out of high school because he was from Mississippi. I thought, man, it'd be nice to see State. It didn't happen, but nice to see State kind of grab him. I'm a believer. This kid can, big arm, accurate, runs fairly well. If it's up here, right? And that's the way everything is. If you can get it up here, then that talent can really set you apart. And so if he can get it up here, and I don't know, but I think he can. I hope he can. And so I got Miles Brennan at 3.
Okay, nice. Well, my top 3 are kind of like you alluded to, Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence. They're going to be there until someone unseats them or they unseat themselves as the Heisman front runners. And then I've got Chuba Hubbard. I think he led the nation in total yards last year rushing. I think he's going to do that again. His team is going to be very successful. I think they win the Big 12. So they're going to be on the national scene. He's going to be the best player on their team. And I think naturally he'll be there. Do I think he'll win it? It's kind of hard for a running back to win it nowadays. It seems like it's really a quarterback's trophy to lose, so to speak. But I think he's right there.
I will say, I think that, if Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields are kind of the only 2, and let's say Brennan doesn't work out and we get an injury or 2, I'm telling you, Penei Sewell out of Oregon, Orlando Pace was an offensive lineman that got Heisman votes.
Yeah.
Penei Sewell's that good.
Yeah.
Penei Sewell's that good. So.
That would be kind of cool to see, without a doubt, just to change it up a little bit. Well, going from a front runner to a dark horse, my Heisman dark horse, and I'm just going to go with one just for the sake of time here. But I alluded to it earlier. And again, man, I don't think they're going to win the SEC because I told you that Georgia was. But I think Kyle Trask, for a majority of the year, he's in that Dan Mullen system. We've seen, you alluded to Dak Prescott earlier. That was when Mullen was the coach of Mississippi State. I think Kyle Trask is going to turn a lot of heads early. And I really think after the first couple of games of the season, I think he's going to be the front runner. And then I think when he gets into the meat of his schedule, that may fall off a little bit. But I could see Kyle Trask, if Florida is able to run the table, he's going to spread the ball around. Florida doesn't really have a power running game, so they're not going to be, just lining up an I formation or anything like that and just running the ball. So I see Kyle Trask. He's also got really good footwork. He's nimble on his feet. Will score some touchdowns running the ball, kind of Tebow-esque. So I'm going with my dark horse is Kyle Trask of the Florida Gators.
That's a really, really nice pick. That's good. I went non-quarterback here just because, if you're a quarterback, I think you always have a better shot than everybody else.
Sure.
And so I stayed in the SEC because there are 2 names in the SEC that are not quarterbacks, still on the offensive side of the ball, and they're going to score touchdowns because that's what these 2 guys do. And so the first one, I've had Miles Brennan as my top 3. Who's he going to be throwing the ball to then? And that's Jamar Chase. the best wide receiver in college football. And quite frankly, if Miles Brennan needs a security blanket, I think that's where he looks.
It's a pretty darn good security blanket.
Absolutely.
I could see like a Snuggie.
I could see Jamar Chase start to rack up some catches and yards and touchdowns, and maybe a receiver jumps up. So Jamar Chase is one. My other one is another receiver, and probably the most fun skill player to watch in college football. And that's Jalen Waddle at Alabama.
Yep,
this dude does it all, and kind of like a Charles Woodson. I know he doesn't play on defense, but the return, the offensive yards and touchdowns he's going to score with Devontae Smith on the side. Like, you can't kind of do both. You got to kind of play them straight up there, and I feel like that just sets up well for Jalen Waddle. So I like Jalen Waddle. I like Jamar Chase for my dark horses.
Okay, nice picks. I think those are guys that are going to be making big plays every single Saturday. And talking all this, man, it's got me amped about college football. And I just hope that we have college football. Like now that they've teased us so much about players going back, and you seeing workouts happening and all this, to ultimately yank that away at the very end is going to be heartbreaking. And I know it would be for good reason. We have seen at a lot of these campuses, a lot of people testing positive. But hopefully they're able to do it. And I could care less if there's fans in the stands. It looks like that's probably not going to happen, or it's going to be a little bit different. But man, we just need college football to happen, and we need it bad. And we talked about last week with Chris LeBron of Off the Ball podcast. The NBA is coming back, and that's going to be awesome, and that will carry us into October. And hopefully, we'll have college football starting at the beginning of September, and having both of those going at the same time, maybe with some NHL. We'll get into baseball in just a second, but it's going to be awesome, and I look forward to that. We were going to talk top college football jobs in the country, like what are the best jobs? Like if these 5 or 10 jobs were open, which ones would be the most sought after? I'm gonna push that to next week on next week's show, just so we can have a little bit of time. Because Kyle, you brought up something today when we were kind of hanging out celebrating Flag Day earlier with the families about Major League Baseball. Looks like the owners and the owners of the teams put out some information there to say, hey, this is what we think could work really good for the league and getting things started. And the players came back with what?
They came back and said, I think the word they used was futile, that future negotiations are futile, and they just said, set your schedule, league. So what it feels like to me is that the players are going to let them set the schedule and say this is what the season's going to look like, and then they're going to strike. That's kind of the feel I have. I hope I'm wrong because, Mike, this. We're a big baseball family over here, and so we would like to have a baseball season. My wife is a Dodger fan. I think that was made clear when she was on Mother's Day.
Yep.
And they have Mookie Betts for a year. And they would like to see Mookie Betts actually play in Dodger blue.
We all.
But who knows? I mean, at this point, I don't have a clue what baseball's doing. I think that what you're seeing here is not. We're still talking about America being north of 10% unemployment still.
Yeah.
Due to COVID, and you have a bunch of millionaires arguing with a bunch of billionaires over millions of dollars. Americans are not. I mean, here's the thing. It's making baseball look like what baseball is being said it is in America, an elite white sport. Like, just this sounds bad, but players, they're offering you, a prorated 85% of your salary. I'm sorry you're not getting more millions, but just go play. Or owners, we're not talking about that much more to just give them, prorate their salaries for however many games and go on.
Man, this is really going to hurt baseball long term. And
it is.
I think, are they going to get us some sort of season in? I'm sure they probably will. But I think this is really – this is going to be like the strike year, what was that, 94 or whatever, all over again, where baseball really takes a huge hit from a publicity standpoint. And like you said, there are people around the country and around the world that are hurting physically, emotionally, financially, specifically. We've both been blessed where both of our families haven't been impacted that from a financial standpoint where we've kept our jobs, but a lot of people have not. And like you said, have these guys, and I know They only have a certain shelf life, kind of like you talked about with running backs, and they got to make the money that they can at that point in time. And I don't discredit them from that at all. But at the end of the day, you play baseball because you love the game, or at least you're supposed to.
It's interesting. The Dodgers have been doing Zoom sessions with fans. Like you got to sign up or RSV. You send an email, or I forget exactly how they do it. And my wife's been doing it, and they have all these players on. All the players talk about is, I just want to play. I just want to play. I just want to play. I mean, and if that is the mindset of the players, then just go play.
Put your money where your mouth is. Pun intended.
Exactly.
Well, let's stay in baseball because we're here. We might as well just settle down because it's a long summer. ESPN 30 for 30, that we've kind of hit on some of these over the past couple of weeks, but this week on June 14th, they're launching the Long Gone Summer. It's kind of the recap of the 1998 season and the home run chase between Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa. They were chasing Roger Maris's record of 61. McGwire, obviously, as everybody knows, ended up breaking that on September 8th, and it was actually against the Cubs, which is kind of fitting. He finished with 70. Sosa finished with 66. Bonds comes back a couple of years later and breaks that. And now it's been kind of widespread that they were, that they were juicing. Kyle, I know you're a Cubs fan. I know you're a Sosa guy with the Cubs. But just about that whole summer, I mean, this is like prime time of us growing up when sports is one of the biggest things we've got going on. It was fun to watch. Just overall thoughts and looking back on it, do you care that they were juicing, or was it just like, hey, this is fun, let's enjoy this moment?
Yeah, so you mentioned the strike. Baseball doesn't come back to prominence in American sports without that season, without the chase for 61, without steroids.
Yeah, were they going to come back with the Marlins winning and then selling all their players in 97? No, they weren't doing it. It was with this right here. Absolutely.
This is what brings baseball back. And, God, what movie is it? Bull Durham? Chicks Dig the Long Ball? I forget the movie. I'm sorry. But chicks dig we all dig the long ball. So all of a sudden you got Mark McGwire, who's 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", like 270, just jacked with that little bat that he had, just cranking homers. I mean, stupid, 450, 475, 500 feet home runs. Oh my God. That is must-see television. And it was. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but you could be watching the nightly news.
Yeah.
And they would interrupt it.
Yeah.
To, McGwire's up to bat. Got to see him hit. I miss it, I'll be honest. I know that baseball purists are like, steroids don't belong anywhere in the game. Then put an asterisk by their name and said they did this with steroids and they did this without steroids. I get steroids are illegal. I'm not saying we should break laws. But, man, just let us see, put the eyeballs there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So since you say that, you've got Sosa. Well, let's go with probably the four most famous players of that area. Sosa, McGwire, Bonds, Clemens. Mm-hmm. Are all four, should they be, because I know Bonds and Clemens are getting close on their cutoff.
Yeah.
Should they be in the Hall of Fame?
Absolutely.
I agree.
Here's the thing. Bonds was a Hall of Famer before the steroids.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a five-tool player. He was the closest thing to Willie Mays we had seen since Willie Mays.
Oh, and Roger Clemens as well. I mean,
and Roger Clemens
most dominant pitchers of that generation, without a doubt.
I mean, it kind of went like Nolan Ryan, Roger Clemens. The torch was passed there. So, no reason those two specifically shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. But, I think it really comes down to what is the Hall of Fame? Are we talking about this is the best players we've ever seen? Or, in my opinion, the Hall of Fame is more this is the story of the sport. You know what I mean?
I like that, yeah.
And if it's the story of the sport, you can't tell the story if you just erase, 10, 15 years saying there were steroids here, we don't talk about it.
Well, and everybody – people can deny it all they want. Like, was it Larry Walker that got in last year and was like, I never used steroids? You can deny it all you want. And I'm not saying he did. But
it's hard to believe.
But, I would say a vast majority of players were. So does that not equal the playing field? Does that not swing things back to a little bit more equal and level?
And quite frankly, baseball is different from, something like football. Because in football, it can be, brute strength and, especially if you're on the offensive or defensive line, you can just move people. But in baseball, you can be the strongest dude in the world. But probably the hardest thing to do is to sit in a major league batter's box with a round stick and hit a round ball going 90 some odd miles an hour, or going 82 miles an hour with 8 inches worth of break. That is the hardest thing to do. So just finding a way to, hit the ball is impressive, and so like steroids don't do that much in baseball. So McGwire hit 70 home runs that year.
Yeah.
Taking steroids away, and he hits 59, 60. Yeah. Maybe he hits 63, right? And he breaks Maris's record. Stupid. Get him in.
Speaking of asterisk, USC has disassociated itself with the disassociation of Reggie Bush. So they have invited Reggie back after 10 years. In 2010, they scrubbed themselves completely of all things Bush after it was kind of came to light that he had received some benefits during his time at USC. Kyle, one thing that I thought was really kind of comical and just really, I couldn't believe this when I read it. Yes, they sent back Reggie Bush's Heisman that was sitting in their kind of athletics building, but they still have the Heisman won by O.J. Simpson that is still there in their athletic facility, which I thought was kind of weird. That they're like, hey, we'll look past this for OJ, but whatever for Reggie. And looking back at this, man, yes, it's kind of the same thing. Did he break some rules? Yes, but by him accepting benefits, did that make him faster? Did it make him a more elusive player? Did it make him get more all-purpose yards? Did it make him the not the best player in the country by far? Did it not make him one of the best college football players possibly of all time? No, it didn't do any of that stuff. And so I just don't understand why. Yes, there were some benefits that went along there, and I understand the forfeiting of games, but you can't not recognize the talent that he had and say, well, we just don't acknowledge this at all. So I'm glad to see the USC kind of came to their senses and says, you know what, we could use this in recruiting. We could use this in a lot of other ways. So we're bringing Reggie back. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's always great to bring back a legend. So I love seeing it. Should he have kept the Heisman? Absolutely. But did it really matter? Them saying, hey, we're going to take your Heisman away, did you go like, oh, well, Reggie Bush is not a Heisman Trophy winner? No, nobody thought that. Like, everybody knows Reggie Bush was the best player in college football that year, and it wasn't even close. So good move by USC because you can exploit it now. Good move. Stupid to ever take the Heisman Trophy from him.
Yeah. Oh, I think without a doubt, now that he's back, and it'll be interesting to see. I haven't seen anything personally about, any kind of response from him about, how he feels about this. I'm sure there will be something if there hasn't already been, but it'll be interesting to see, like, does he fully embrace this? Is he used now in recruiting pitches? And, does USC now say, hey, you could be the next Reggie Bush here, and, things like that. So that's going to be very interesting.
And if you think they weren't already making that pitch.
Oh, sure.
Just because he's not affiliated with the school doesn't mean you can't drop a name.
Absolutely. Well, Kyle, we are out of time, man. It's been a good one. We've got a lot of college football talk in, which I know has been good for us. And so we are out of time on this episode of Dad's Watching Sports, but we appreciate everybody for checking us out this week. We'll be back next week. Next week is Father's Day. It's Father's Day week. We'll see if a PlayStation shows up or if any kind of other things do. We're glad that Kyle got the weed eating done. That'll be good for him with Father's Day, so that way he's not having to do any of that during his Father's Day time. But this has been Dad's Watching Sports. We will see you next week. You guys take care. Have a good one.